Hi guys, thanks for tuning into the channel today. Today's special is we're taking both Royal Enfields out, the Classic 350 Reborn. Main one I'll be riding out first up will be the Halcyon Grey, but my favourite one at this stage is the grey version there, the Marsh Grey. And I'd like to sort of refer to it as a transporter, because when I'm on that bike it's like being transported back 50 or 60 years in time to the late 60s. So that's the best about that bike. Both bikes look virtually the same, but I think as for the nostalgia between them, I'd sort of go for the Marsh Grey that side. Best thing about it, we'll get back to the bike, and that's what I like about it, and that's why I called it the transporter, because it transports me back into a era when things were a lot more simple, less problems, and you can get out there and enjoy yourself. And where I live in New South Wales, Australia, in all honesty, most of these roads I travel on, when I first got my licence back in the late 60s, I can really see no difference. So I am really transporting me back along a road I virtually would have rode along back 50 odd years ago, and I can't see any improvement unless I go onto the main roads where they've probably done a bit of resealing. And I think if I look back 50 years ago, I don't recall as many potholes on the road as what there is now, but there probably wasn't as many cars either. But although there's not many cars here, because most people could look at my clips and say, where are the cars? Because these roads I travel on, I can go sometimes 1-2 hours along them and don't see anyone apart from me going along there, riding it along and enjoying it that way. But let's get back to the bike side of things. This is really, like without a doubt, the most pleasurable bike I've bought over the last 10 years to ride along. And, if you're out there chasing a bike to buy, for $8,000, which isn't a huge amount of money, although 8 to almost 9, but when you look at it that way, sure, you could go out and buy a Jap one in the Honda, Yamaha or Suzuki range, but the fact is, when it comes to the crunch, you will never feel as good on one of those compared to what one of these classics for 350 will take you back on a time warp, and that is the best about it. Sure, the Jap bikes will do everything better, and they are probably better bikes than these ones, but the fact is, where else can you go out and look at something like this, jump on it, and transport you back to 50 years? And the best thing about it, when you're transported back to 50 odd years on this bike, you're going with dual channel ABS, and you're also going with fuel injection, something that in those days it would have been almost impossible to get hold of, definitely with the ABS braking. And as far as the fuel injection, there were a couple of things around coming in on fuel injection in those days, but believe me, like I always thought when I swung to an Enfield, the best thing I ever seen on them was the fuel injection, and it was just nothing better to go out compared to playing with carburetors all the time and getting them going and not running right and choking up on you and pulling plugs. So that would be the best thing I experienced when I jumped over to these Enfields. But this little Classic 350, if you said to me, what would I rather have, the 350 or the 500? Look, I would really pick the 350 any day, because this latest 350, if you're on the fence and you're thinking about buying one, you'll be 100% satisfied with these, because they run along so well. Like these roads I'm cruising along here now, like I'm only running the bike in and I've only done 500 or 600 kilometres, and it runs along smoothly at 80 kilometres an hour. And, when I run it in totally, well, I'll swing onto the better roads and I'll cruise along here at 100 kilometres an hour. But, it will max out at around about the blue one, I think. Yeah, I've had the blue one up to 110, and there seems to be a little bit more, but I don't know really how much more. So the only real drawback with these bikes is they lack a bit of grunt on the hills. Like a 500 will pull it better. But if you said to me, would I swap this 350 for a 500? No, because, when I've been out here riding these roads, even when I had all those 500s over a period of 10 years, I never ever took them right out onto the back roads where I feel confident taking this one, simply for the matter that there was too many items to go wrong on one of those, and the risk of being stuck out there. And I used to take it on the 500s on some good runs, but never game to stop it in case it wouldn't start on me or something like that. And I was talking new bikes then, because there were so many things that went wrong with them, like to be honest, with the regulator bracket braking on them, your negative or positive battery lead braking and stranding you. It just went on and on. Then every trip I had to come back, I had to tighten it up after a good run. If I went out and did 300 or 500 Ks, I'd have to go right through the bike and tighten it up. Now, the only good thing going for it had that additional 7 horsepower of power. But this one here, if you look at it, like the blue one especially, I think I've only ever adjusted the chain once. And I can just go out and on the blue bike, which has got around about 4,300 Ks on it, I can just go anywhere I want to and just pull up. And you'll see me on the dirt roads and the drone shots and stuff like that. And believe me, you've got to have confidence on a bike to take it out on one of those roads, because if something goes wrong and it doesn't want to start or causes you any issues, you're going to be out there a long while, or you're going to be walking a long while before you find someone that's going to come along and give you a lift. Because on both occasions when I've been on those roads, I've been out there for quite a long time doing all the photo sessions, and I've only ever seen, I think, one or maybe 2 cars at the max, and in most cases just the one. So, like you'd be out there, and another thing I never mentioned before, a lot of those places I go into, I've got no phone reception. So even if I get out there, I'm not going to be able to ring anyone and come and get me. And even if I could find someone to come and get me, it'd be very hard to explain to them where I am, because if I'm out there and I'm off the track and stuff like that, you're going to be battling to find it. I mean, Australia's a pretty big place, and it's not as if people are riding past you all the time and say, "How are you, mate?" It doesn't work like that. When I'm out there riding around, in most cases I'm there by myself, and that's why I have to think about sometimes, will I do this ride here or there? But one thing with these Classic 350 guys, if you're on the fence and you want to buy one, so far I've found them 100% reliable. And now I'm riding this Marsh Grey a lot more now. I've decided, I actually ordered on eBay one of those sort of army type battle jackets, so that the big pockets at the front where you got 2 up the top, 2 down the bottom, so I can carry my camera in the front pocket rather than pull up on the road and then try to get out of a backpack and things like that. But I'm sort of ordered one of those so that I can fit right into the army style riding theme on that one, because these Marsh Greys look such a classic old bike. It's just hard to believe they're brand new, and they look 50 or 60 years old. And one thing about it, if you're also thinking about buying one of these 350s, how good are they? Well, I know from personal experience on the blue one that once they're running, you can ride them along at 100 kilometres an hour, and they're virtually vibration free. They're a good ride. You can buy some really nice accessories to put on them, and I think overall you'd be really happy with how they go. And handling wise, they run around all right. They run through the zoom through the corners at a reasonable pace. Their braking's pretty good. Fuel economy, if that's your theme, well, they're pretty good on a tank of gas too. So there's really nothing you can get there and say anything bad about it. The quality control on them now is a lot better than what used to be from the old days. They're fit and finish and all, that's really nice too. What would surprise you, where you've seen me get both bikes out and run them along dirt and through rocky 4-wheel drive tracks, all that's done on a stock bike with just the factory Seat tyres. And even when I first bought the bike, I actually thought the tyres would be crap and no good at all. And I was going to buy a set of Dunlop, I think the old style, I think it's K70s. But after I'd been out here on a while and riding it around, I found it pretty good in that area too, with no drama whatsoever, and it can virtually take what I can throw at it, or as much as I'm prepared to give it. So it really does that job well. And if you asked over the time you've had your bikes, like 5,000 Ks, the both of them, what issues have you had? Well, the only real issue I've had is when I got the blue one first, it had that faulty speedo, and it had the habit of jamming it at around 20 or 30 kilometres. But in the beginning, I just worked out, if you get there and you strike that problem, all you do is turn it on, turn it back off, and you might have to do that half a dozen times, and then after that it'll rectify itself and get back down to 0. But the biggest mistake is if you ride off with it and it's showing 20 or 30, it'll throw everything out and you won't know how fast you're going. But since then, I've been ordered I've been in contact with Royal Enfield and they've given a replacement speedo, and I'll be able to fit that in place, and everything should be pretty good after that. And while we're at it, I suppose I should mention to you that when I had that speedo issue, that was in virtually the first 2 or 3 days of picking up the bike, and then that went for probably, with that speedo issue, up until about 1,000 or 1,500 kilometres. And then after that, or every time I've been on the bike since, the speedo appears to have rectified itself and it's reading correctly every time I get on. So what I do find, which is really worth thinking about, when you get onto your bike straight off and you key it and turn on the ignition, make sure it runs through its complete cycle and the speedo throws itself around to 160, back to 0, then press your starter button. So I think that's pretty important too, because I think if you cut in there early, or some people get in when it's just sort of powering up or squirting fuel into the injectors and interferes with the cycle, I think it's a good idea to let it complete its first cycle, then press the button or your starter, and away you go after that. But like I said, in the earlier days I had that bit of a problem there, but after that no drama whatsoever, and each time I go out now and get on it I have no issues whatsoever. So when the speedo comes, I'll be able to sit there and see whether I'll go ahead and get it done or not. Now the other thing, a couple of things worth mentioning too while we're at it, and this is virtually a mini review on the bike, or a long-term review on both bikes. The other thing we're talking about is these bikes have really got a nice exhaust note from stock, and I really don't think there's any reason to go out and put sports mufflers or anything on them or interfere with the fueling just for the sake so you can get a bit more loud noise, because they really do perform well when you're riding along. And if you go back and look at a few of my clips and that, you'll have no trouble hearing the exhaust when I'm heading along and then back off, and you'll hear it burble and carry on behind you. And it's not an intrusive one where you've got to go out there and wear earplugs so you don't have to listen to it, because there's a lot of times I had bikes that had sports exhaust on them, and I like to hear the sound of the exhaust, but I also run with earplugs every time so I didn't have to listen to it going along, because loud exhaust is all right to kick off when you're going around town, but if you go out on a long run, after a while it gets a bit monotonous and a little bit of a strain on you out there while you're having to listen to it. So that side, it's really worth thinking about whether you want it or just stick with the stock side. Apart from that, I found all the controls on the bike, really good to get at. I've never had any issues with anything braking or something like that. The throttle response is pretty good on the bike too, as far as smoothness goes. It's way smoother than the Classic 500. They were a bit jerky in the throttle, and when they went to this new motor and probably got a new ECU tuning in it and a few other things that went with it, they did the job really well. The only other mod I've done, which was I think a plus, I ended up having a spare set of 500 rear shocks here, and I ended up swinging those over to the back of the 350, which I thought was a big improvement in the ride quality. And apart from that, a couple of people have asked me since I've had these bikes, which is the best seat, the stock seat or the touring seat. I actually like the touring seat better than the stock, and I've also been asked about the spring kits, do they make the ride any better? No, they don't make the ride for the zooming around any better or something. All there are is mainly all show, no go, but the fact is, for the $80, $90 you pay for them, they really look the part, and they swing you back to the look of a Classic 500 from the rear, and the bikes ride pretty comfortable in that seat to start with. Like if you look at a Classic 500 seat, for example, they're really a hard flat seat, and a lot of the times I've been on Classic 500s and hit bumps and been thrown off the seat. Well, even in stock form, because this one's a more plush type seat, I haven't been tossed off the seat once on either bike. The front end runs over the bumps pretty good. It's probably let down a little bit at the back, and that's why I decided to throw the 500 shocks from a Classic onto it. Now, I wouldn't say the Classic 500 shocks were much good in the first place, because I tried a couple of different sort of shocks on those, Hagen's and I don't know, some other ones I tried at that stage. But surprisingly, on the 350, the Classic 500 shocks seemed to work pretty good. So, I'm pretty happy that way. You know, I also think is seeing there's such a reliable bike now where, you know, just go out there, turn that starter, and you're in business and you're away to go. And you know, I think you could ride this long distance day after day if you were going out there on a long haul, and you wouldn't have any drama with it whatsoever, providing you used common sense and didn't flog the crap out of it. So if you looked at, after you run it in, your goal is 100 kilometres an hour and stay away from the top speeds after that, because between 100 and probably a stop speed there may be only 15 kilometres left in, so you're using at least 90% of your power. You know, like if you're happy with riding one of these in 100, I think it'll do everything you want. I mean, as a rule, you know, as far as riding goes, I've had this on, or either bike, I've had it on really good roads, back roads, dirt roads, tracks, anywhere that you would expect you could ride a motorbike with a bit of caution. I've had the bike on, and even around town, you know, as a rule I don't like riding around town, but I've been out there and I've been riding around, and it is pretty good and easy to handle around town with no drama whatsoever. And I'm about 82 kilos, 5'9", I don't have any trouble balancing it or getting it on, and these bikes weighing at 195 kilos, or approximately what a Classic 500 weighs in. So they're not a really light bike. My last trip out there when I went on that four-wheel drive track, you know, that could have been a bit dicey because, you know, like if you thought it was bad in that section I come up, when I was down further and looked into another section, if you went in that one, you could be really asking for trouble. And, you know, like you have to use a bit of common sense when you're out there and hope for the best and think to yourself, if it's risky, don't try it. But you know, like I wouldn't sort of say to anyone, buy one of these bikes and run it around where I do, because they're only just sample runs, and I'm not liable to take that bike back there, I don't think, and try that again, because better quit while you're ahead. But I've been waiting a fair while now for a Kawasaki KLX 150, and when that arrives, I wouldn't hesitate to take it back, because it's around 70 kilos lighter, and I think it'd breeze through that area pretty well. But it's a straight out like a dual purpose bike compared to what I'm riding now is really a road bike, which I'm taking it off road. And you may not have heard it in the clips when I've had it on those off roads, but you know, every now and again you'll hear a ping noise where the sump guard either hits a rock underneath or something to that effect, and I think I've heard it now probably at least half a dozen times. So if you do go playing off road, a smart idea would be to buy the Royal Enfield sump guard. Now, speaking of sump guard and accessories, if you look at some of the accessories that are on the bikes, well, the sump guard, when I first put it on, I picked up a little bit of added vibration to the bike, and I'll probably show you a picture if I can, but it picked up a little bit of added vibration. But a couple of guys on the comment section said, when you put that on next time, rubber mount it. So it has got a sort of slightly rubber plug in it, but not what I class as good ones. So next time I put it on, I'll get a bit of inner tube or something like that and cut a bit of rubber out of that and put it around the holes there, and then screw it back in that way, and it'll give it a little bit of rubber support or vibration or insulation between the main engine frame and the guard itself. But if you're going to go off-road, I think it's a good idea having one of those and put up with it as far as that goes. The other thing I did, I put on touring mirrors. I thought the touring mirrors were pretty good mod too, so you know, there's something we're thinking about. The give that period style look, I put that peak from the Halcyon Grey onto it and sprayed it matte black to match the bike. So overall, between that and the 500 chocks at the back and a couple of other mods, you know, text disc and a couple of things like that, you know, overall it's been a fairly nice little transformation. I've also bought the Royal Enfield style army panniers or bags what go on the back, so you know they'll look the part too when I'm out there riding it around. But you know, overall I think, you know, to sum it up real quick now, that if you've been thinking about one of these, it won't matter what colour you buy, or it won't matter what bike you buy. Like any of these Classic 350 Reborn, they all ride the same. So well I've only had two, but both of them ride exactly the same, start the same, and no difference between riding one bike and the other. Now, if you ask me what about Classic 500s, well, I think I had 15 of them. They and everyone rode different. None of them rode the same. Some vibrated, some didn't. Just all drama all the way through. Some wouldn't handle the bumps properly. Some would be shaking around a lot more. Some wouldn't handle. All these sort of problems. But what I can say about the Classic 350 Reborn, they're very uniform in how they put them together at a new factory. And if you buy one, and it won't matter what colour you buy, they'll all ride the same. They're almost heading towards what you'd expect if you bought a, say for example, a Honda CB500X. Well, if you bought one here from one dealership and then went to another dealership and bought another one, both of them will ride exactly the same. They're both going to behave the same. They're both going to have a little bit of bar vibration in the 22 models have still got it, a bit of bar vibration. And it's not going to be you ride one and it hasn't got vibration in the bars and the other one has. So this is the same with these ones here. When you buy them, they've virtually got no vibration even to worry about. I mean, I couldn't get out there and ride this bike, no gloves or anything if I wanted to, along at 80 or 100 kilometres an hour. And that was impossible to do on other Enfields I'd been on. Just outright impossible. And also on foot pegs too, good in that area too. So, if you look at it this way, this is a really nice package that the factory's put together. They're not perfect, but they're not a perfect price. If you want to say you wanted one in a perfect price, it'd probably be $3,000 or $4,000 more, made by some other manufacturer where they can cash in on it and extract your money that way. But if you look at it for what you get, what fun you can have, and it's always a fun factor. It's not about buying the bikes. It's in the end, it doesn't matter how much money you got or how much you want to spend or how much I've had this or that or that. When it comes to the crunch, it's whether you step out the back door and look at that bike and give it a bit of a smile and say, I want to go for a ride on you today, or you get out there and walk out and look at it and say, what a heap of crap, this was a mistake. Now, you'll never say that about a 350 because you know that you're there for, a good long haul run with it, providing you use common sense, don't flog the guts out of it, and ride it at 100 kilometres an hour or under, and you'll get a very good run, I think, out of these. Because one other thing too, like when I was doing oil changes on the bike, and I've done a lot of oil changes on Enfields over the last 10 years, these classic 350 Reborns, when you drop the oil out of those, sure, all bikes have got dirty oil when they drop it out, but the best thing about it, there's no rubbish, there's no metal, there's no filings, or there's no slither of metal when you look down into the oil. Totally clean, equal to what you do on a Honda oil change or something like that. So they're really clean motors now, and they've got their act together compared to how they used to be in the old days. So hopefully what I give you on this bit of a review on what I think of both bikes you found helpful. Give it a thumbs up if you like it, and I'll catch up on you in the next clip. And once again, thanks for tuning in and taking a look, and bye for now. Okay guys, thanks for joining me on today's ride, and I got to say this is one of the most enjoyable rides I've had on any bike to date, and I thoroughly enjoyed today's venture out here into the scrub. Put up quite a few miles, most of it on dirt, and a really great experience. So I'm going home really happy from today's run. So overall, a great ride out on the 350 Classic, and thoroughly enjoyed the day. So apart from that, thanks for tuning in, taking a look, and I'll get back to you on the next run.